everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be telling you how to write amazing lecture notes. So next time you go back to them, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't get anything from the lecture, or it's basically regurgitating the lecture slides, or you just don't understand what you wrote. So today I'm going to be telling you how to basically write amazing. Like always, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below any videos you want to see, and check out my vlog which I posted if you want to see more of my content. I'm not even gonna lie, but learning how to take good notes is a skill that comes with time. Some people are just naturally good at taking notes and others take a while to find the balance. I personally do consider myself good at taking notes. I've always been quite good at taking notes. We did have quite a lot of classes and workshops at secondary school and sixth form on how to take good notes, and I think that did help. And people have always told me that they find my notes really aesthetically pleasing when I've handwritten them out. So I do consider myself a little bit of an expert. So I'm not going to ramble too much, and let's just get straight into it. So if you're really aiming for a 2-1, a first, then I definitely recommend that you listen to these tips. So first things first, you're in your lecture or you're in your seminar and the lecturer starts to talk. Now, the first thing that usually most lecturers will do is give you the outline of the lecture. So they'll be like, okay, so let's say it is about, for example, if I'm in my French politics lecture, the lecturer will be like, okay, so today we're going to talk about Marxism, anarchists, we're going to talk about Louis Michel, so and so. So at that point, what I would start doing is I would write as kind of subheadings the upcoming topics that are coming up. So I thought it'd be a little bit more useful if I actually showed you my actual lecture notes, because obviously it's okay me talking about them and you might not quite understand what I mean. These are my politics notes from, I believe, last week. So I'm just going to show you. So as you can see, I don't know if I've wrote recap because the lecturer just recapped what we'd gone through, and then I've written 1, 2, 3, 4 as my subheadings, so you essentially know where the lecture's going and there's no surprises along the way. But it's so much easier to do it like that, because let's say I have an upcoming seminar. So if you don't know what a seminar is where you basically in a smaller group and you focus on a particular topic from a lecture and you go into depth with reading and discussion. And let's say we're covering a particular topic that we talked about in last week's lecture or the week before. It's so much easier to find the specific topic or subheading that you're looking for. So for example, if I'm having a seminar on communism, I just go here because I've written it down, and then I just write with bullet points and basically very concise notes. So I've just decided to insert a clip of what it looks like because I've realised that the camera was basically flipping the whole page. So as you can see, I've just put 1, and then obviously 1 is communist society, and then I've put recap, so and so. So I would actually recommend that you handwrite your notes. Obviously this will vary from subject to subject, but even if there's a lot of content in one lecture, I still prefer to handwrite, just because it makes me think a lot more about what I'm writing and I'm not basically just copying the slides. And I find it so much easier just to handwrite, because it just means that I'm thinking about what the lecturer is saying, I'm filtering any information that I think is not too relevant, and yeah, that just means better notes. The thing I find with typing is that a lot of the time you get distracted. For example, if you have a spelling mistake, you'll be like, oh, I need to quickly fix that up. Or you basically will be looking at the slides more than the teacher or lecturer. The thing you have to understand with lecture slides is it's merely just a guide for the lecturer and yourself, and to basically just see where the lecturer is going towards. And I wouldn't necessarily pay too much attention to the slides unless there's specific dates you need to know, or there's a quote from a, for example, secondary source. Then it becomes a little bit more important, but apart from that, I would pay more attention to what the lecturer or teacher has to say. It's much more valuable, and that's what you're basically paying for. Also, when you type up your notes in lectures, there's a tendency to basically feel tempted to go on Facebook or to basically browse through ASOS. The amount of people I see in my lectures that are basically just divergent away from the lecture is crazy. and you basically need to use that hour or two to basically put your full attention and focus on the lecture, because it was basically pointless you go in if you're not going to pay attention. The thing with typing up notes is you're not going to look at those notes for a very long time into revision, and the thing is that you're more likely to remember things if you're repeating them. So that's why I like to think as the whole like taking notes process as 3 steps. So step 1 being you take the notes in the lecture or the class, and step 2 being you review the notes. So this is why I handwrite, and I'm gonna stick to handwriting basically. So on the weekend I set time to basically type up my notes, and some people might think it's a waste of time because you're essentially passive learning, because you're just basically copying information onto your computer. But I always find it really helps me, because if I do it, for example, on a Sunday night and I have my politics lecture on a Monday, it just means it's very fresh in my mind because I've written up last week's notes the night before, and it really helps. So when I'm typing up my notes, I will then get the lecture slides up, and I basically will see if I've missed any important information. The mistake I used to do was basically, most of our lectures are recorded and I basically listen to them again, because I was so scared I'd be missing like any small details or any major bits of the lecture, because sometimes I have a tendency to like space out towards the end of the lecture because I get like really tired at all the information that's being thrown at me. But I found it was literally like an hour of my life wasted, because I literally sat there like, okay, I know most of this. And then, yeah. I definitely wouldn't recommend you listen back to your lectures unless you really didn't understand a topic. Then I would recommend it. I also like to do is, sometimes when I'm writing notes in lectures, I will write little notes to myself and things to read, or I will have ideas that I perhaps want to take further, like thoughts about anything the lecturer has said. So I always like to go a bit deeper into the topic. So that's the only way I find that you're going to get the higher grades in terms of like 2-1s. First, it's when you start pushing more than the lecturer has gone. This might mean reading some secondary sources that your lecturer or teacher has recommended you, or it might also be just be searching up on Google an idea or a theory perhaps that you've come across in the past and you thought might be in relation to what you're studying. So for example, I am doing currently a German literature module, which is going, it's okay. And when I was in the lecture, we were studying one work which was called Die Judenbücher, and I thought it had a lot in relation to the idea of magical realism. Actually, magical realism originated from German artists and then became a big thing in Latin American literature, and last year we touched upon it when I was doing Spanish, and it's essentially the idea that people's cultures, upbringings can affect the way people tell and remember stories. This German work we were studying had a lot to do with that, and I wrote that down, and I was reminding myself, actually you'd never really realise how important your notes are until you come to university, because it's basically after that lecture what you do will determine how you're doing your coursework and what kind of grade you're going to get at the end of the year. If you do all the hard graft during term time, it's going to be so much easier when you do revision. Last year I had a Spanish art module and I didn't enjoy it that much. I basically just regurgitated everything from the lectures, and I didn't get as good a grade as I had in all my other modules where I'd gone into so much depth and further reading, and it was so much harder having to after read all the secondary sources and trying to basically get a good grade after so long. So how do you store your notes is the question. Well, I last year used to use folders. For example, here is my French literature, well, it was all my French modules basically, folder, and I used to basically print out every week the notes that I had done. So I thought in my head, oh yeah, it would be a good idea because I can just flick through and I don't have to look through my files. Oh, if only I knew. Basically the problem was that during the holidays I didn't have much space as it is with my suitcase and my backpack, and then on top of that to be carrying a big heavy folder, not just one but 3. No, it was not convenient, and I basically gave up in the end with just printing them out and never kept with it, so it wasn't a good idea. So now all I use my folders are for just any important worksheets that I get in class and any feedback I get from essays, because it's always nice to look back at anything that last time I was perhaps lacking in. Here are my lecture notes from last year. So as you can see, it was basically the same idea, and yeah, I can still read these back and I can understand them, and I could probably talk about the topic even though I haven't touched this book in like a year. Actually, how I've done it this year is I have folders on my OneDrive. So OneDrive is linked with my uni, and I can basically access them from my phone, my laptop, and it's really great. And for each module I just have one Word document. So if I go on my Word document right now, I'll show you in a minute, it's basically lecture 1, lecture 2, lecture 3, just one after the other, because last year as well, when I typed them up, I was constantly like, okay, where's lecture 2, where's lecture 3? It doesn't matter if you name them, it's still so much harder when you have about 100 documents in one like row. I don't know how well you can see that, you can probably not really see it, but it's just lecture 1, lecture 2, lecture 3, one after the other basically. And then if, for example, we're doing a book, I will have a separate Word document for all my quotes, any secondary reading I do, because I don't want it basically all mixed up with my lecture notes, because then I'm confused. I'm like, okay, which one's from the lecture and which is like my own research? I do realise I've thrown quite a lot of information at you, but I hope that it was useful. I hope that you will consider it next time you're taking some notes in a lecture or a class. And don't forget again to like and subscribe down below to my channel. Let me know of any future videos you want to see, if you want any tips for any other aspects of studying, whether it be procrastinating, whether it be revision. I'm your girl, so thank you again and see ya.